I was sat there going, oh crap, it's just Toni. Who's going to want to just talk with Toni? Again, take away the logo, take away the job title. And I had this realization that more or less every job I'd ever been hired for, I was hired not for my CV, not for my 7 years university studies, not for my master's degree. I was hired for my extracurricular activities, for the websites that I built, for the communities that I'd built, for the pieces that I'd written, for my thought leadership pieces on LinkedIn. So that was an important, interesting moment for me of, oh, I'd been doing this. Companies hired me because they liked everything I was doing. They would tap into that. And so without actually knowing, for the last decade, I'd been building my own brand.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Behind the Stream podcast, episode number 12. Today I am joined by my guest, Toni Cowan-Brown, who, according to her Twitter profile, is at the intersection of politics, culture, tech, and F1. Host of 2 podcasts. I'm so glad I got that right. I've just memorized it. Hey, Toni, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was very funny when you just said that for a minute. According to her profile, I was like, oh, crap, what idiotic bio have I put? Because on TikTok, I have blunt, clear, and brief. And there are some days where I am very blunt, and there are other days where I'm brief, and there's many times where I'm neither of those. So I was just like, oh, shit, what bio have I given you? I love it. Thanks for having me.
I'm trying to like look at like what you do and define that in a few words, and I was struggling, so I thought John was going to go to a bio.
Yeah, how's the woman define herself?
how she sums it up in a short way, and I thought that's perfect.
I love it.
How's your day been? What have you been up to?
Day's been good. We were just chatting about this offline, weren't we? I've got a sick pup, but the one thing that the pandemic has brought us is this humanization of all of these people, and it is the one thing that I like as a takeaway of what we've learned. Of you no longer just walk into an office and pretend to be a CV. You can actually be a human being, and there's just chaos. So today is one of those chaotic days, but otherwise I'm good. I'm planning a lot of 2023 right now, which is both exciting and daunting.
I'm keen to like just get onto like what you do exactly, like as I was kind of just alluding to. I think it seems to be a bit of a mishmash of all sorts of things. So we're keen to like what's your background, like whether you come from a corporate background and moving towards like what you do today and how you got there.
Let's dig in, and I'll share an initial anecdote because I know that you were keen to sort of talk a little bit about the branding aspect. And just as a fun anecdote, someone was asking me the other day, and we can obviously come back to this, but it's like, what do you do right now on Twitch? I'm like, Twitch is currently paying me to fuck around on the internet. That's what it feels like. And then I say that, and which is truly what it feels like. But obviously I take it very seriously and I love what I'm doing. And then I saw this other woman the other day announce that she was part of one of the Twitch programs or Twitch Accelerator program. And I was like, now that's how you do branding. Because the way she explained it, she said, I'm proud to announce that I have now signed with Twitch and they have given me my own show for which I am co-hosting and producing. I was like, now that's a better way of explaining what you do. And it was just the power of branding. And at the end of the day, it is technically true. But I've never heard of anyone on Twitch say that, you know, they've signed with Twitch and they've been given, you know, a show. And because truly what you do, you press live on your camera and you just start speaking into a void, and hopefully there are people there who listen. But I thought that was as I was looking at that, I was like, yeah, maybe I should just stop saying I just talk on the internet. I do, to answer your question, I actually not worse, but not only do I come from a corporate background, I come from an institutional background. So I studied politics and international relations for 7 years. I went to uni and did a master's degree in this space. Yeah, I loved it. Which is bizarre because I think this is the through line for everything that I do now, is I loved studying and learning, but I never felt like the environment in which I was put was conducive to me being excited by learning and studying. I always felt that it was very rigid, or the professors didn't seem excited, or I was asked to learn things by heart versus actually try and understand. And I think this is why I've moved into this space that I'm in right now, which is I love learning with people. I love this idea that we're constantly a work in progress, that we're constantly studying. I studied that for 7 years and then went and worked for one of the European institutions, i.e. the European Commission, and I worked in the department that looked after this is a very archaic word, but ICT for societal challenges. So essentially the internet at the intersection, the internet and tech at the intersection of all of these things, how it's changed healthcare, how it's changed the financial industry. Loved it. And then I woke up one morning and went, if I don't leave this bubble that I'm in right now, which is European institutions, politics, policy making, I am never going to see the rest of the world. And so I kind of dropped everything. Didn't move very far, moved to the UK, and then started working at an agency, and then started having more and more tech clients, and then realized, oh, tech is the future. There's something here that's really interesting. And I was just at the cusp when I think we stopped talking about tech as like a siloed thing or an industry, and as tech as this thing that is touching all the different industries. And then started working for an American tech company, helped them with their European expansion. Then the pandemic hit. I had moved to America, then the pandemic hit, which makes visas, applications, living in.
What do you mean help them with their European expansion? Like,
so
what does that mean?
What does that entail?
Yeah.
You have it both ways. You have a lot of American companies who realize that Europe's a massive market, and Europe is a massive market with millions and billions of people who want to buy their products. But they kind of go in, a lot of American companies make this mistake of, oh, Europe, one market, one population, one language, this is how we're going to sell the product. And they don't understand that Europe is actually, even though it's one entity and one big free market, it's actually a complicated set of rules and regulations and 24 different languages and 27 now, with the UK having left that market, but 27 different countries with very different ways of doing business. And so I was hired by this American company to figure out what it would look like to get people excited by their product, how to market their product, how to speak about their product, how to sell and close deals, what parts of the product we had to internationalize, i.e. things just like in the data, but I was selling campaigning software, so databases, not the actual data, which is important after the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal. But it was truly like how campaigns run their elections. And so there's small things like in America, when you collect data, you can collect place of worship and religion, which is completely illegal in Europe. You never ask someone what their place of worship is or what their religious beliefs are. And so it was things like, okay, if you're going to market this product to Europeans, you have to change the database. You cannot ask. That can't even be a thing in a database or like a field that you can complete. Or it was things like, it's not zip codes, it's postcodes in Europe. So it's all of these small things. So that's from the product end. But then it was also, how do you talk about campaigning software in Europe when America's far more advanced when it comes to campaigning tactics? And I won't bore you, but the list goes on. GDPR compliance was a huge thing. That's not an American thing, started to become an American thing. But in Europe, when you collect data, it's very important to Europeans to know how this data is being used, where it's being stored, who has access to it, all of these things, which I absolutely loved. It was a great project to work on for 5 years. I worked on that.
And then after that, what was the
after that? Not a breaking point so much as I was doing the European expansion for this American company and done it for 5 years. I set up the team, built the team. We'd closed 7 French presidential candidates. I worked with 4 different political parties in the UK, 5 political parties in France. Like, we were killing it. And so I was like, I feel like my job here is done. And at the same time, my husband was working for a UK company and he was asked, do you want to do the US expansion? I thought, yeah, let's do this. So we moved to America. Stayed with the same company, and then the pandemic hit, and because of the visa that I was on, and then he changed jobs. And so the way I describe it is the pandemic forced me for the first time to take a sabbatical. And it was the first time in my life, and actually this is a really great question because it's so pivotal to where I am today, but it was the first time in my life that my value as someone in the workforce wasn't attached to a logo or a job title. I was just Toni. And it was a very weird feeling from being, no, Toni, vice president at this company, or Toni that worked for, X company. It was the first time that I was just Toni. And it's a very weird feeling when you spend your whole life climbing the corporate ladder, being attached to large institutions, being attached to large logos, whether that's, in my case, it was BCW or Nation Builder or A16Z, having that ripped away from you and going, well, who is Toni? And so that was such a pivotal moment for me, because I was like, okay, got it. This is great. This is going to force me to what do I want to do for the next 10 years? what does it look like when I'm just quote unquote branding myself? And so, funnily enough, based on the conversation you and I had last week, a couple of weeks ago, this is where all the branding, again, quote unquote, that I had been doing for myself for the last decade came in very handy. Because if you stripped away the logo and you stripped away my job title, I actually started to realize, oh, I'm very clear on who Toni actually is, because I've been doing that exercise for the last decade. I know what I stand for. And it was interesting to see that people were still interested in having conversations with me, even though I couldn't technically work in America. They were still willing to get on calls and chat with me. And then I was like, oh, there's a lot of content I actually want to create in this space.
So then that's it, right?
That's my that's my journey. That's my journey until the last 2 years where I started creating content. But I don't know if you've got more questions about that journey. But that was more or less my journey. Well, very condensed.
We can start. That's perfect, because we can then start now with talking about like the branding piece. It's personal branding, isn't it? Like you said, you've just gone from working corporate life to doing branding for big corp firms to then now sat at home thinking, how do I take what I've learned to brand myself into something? And then so how did you go about that? What did you set goals? Like what was where did you start when it came to thinking, how do I build my personal brand? Why do I even show the world my expertise? How do I like build my reputation?
So I'll take it from that moment that I was sat there going, oh crap, it's just Toni. Who's going to want to just talk with Toni? Again, take away the logo, take away the job title. And I had this realization that two things. More or less every job I'd ever been hired for, I was hired not for my CV, not for my 7 years university studies, not for my master's degree. Truly, the people that hired me couldn't care less about that. It's great to have. It's a great like cachet of just like, hey, I went to uni, which I still think is somewhat of an archaic mindset. But I think it gave people a little bit of confidence. But I was hired for every single job for my extracurricular activities, for the websites that I built, for the communities that I'd built, for the pieces that I'd written, for my thought leadership pieces on LinkedIn, for the fact that I would go on the BBC radio every week to talk about the news of the day. That was why people hired me every single time. So that was an important, interesting moment for me of, oh, I'd been doing this. Companies hired me because they liked everything I was doing. They would tap into that of like, we can send you to a conference. We know you can get on stage. We know that we can put you on live TV. We know that when push comes to shove in front of a journalist, you can stand your ground. You can be a great, evangelist for the company. So they were tapping into this, but reality, I was doing this regardless for me. And so without actually knowing, for the last decade, I'd been building my own brand. So that was the first thing that I realized of, I'm going to be okay, because every time someone hired me, they didn't hire me because of my past job or my experience. They've hired me because everything I've done on the side. And then the second thing that I realized is, wait, even when I was in these businesses, all the deals that I was brokering, the sales contracts that I was signing, the clients that I was bringing on, all of this was humans. At its core, it was, I understand humans and I love talking with human beings. And what I realized is, in the world in which we're living right now, and I think this has been true for the last decade, but there's been a bit of a distrust in large institutions and large corporations. And we've gone back to, we're going to trust humans and we're going to trust people. I think this is why the rise of D2C, direct-to-consumer brands, are working so well, is because you look at someone, you go, I followed their journey, and now they've created a brand, and that person's built an audience, and there's a trust there, and I could be that person, and I'm excited by that person, so I'm going to buy whatever products they put out there. And cherry on the cake, if that product is something that I actually want and I actually can use, like, great. So those two things made me realize, don't panic. You're going to be okay. And there's something interesting. And honestly, I don't know how and why I started building my own brand so early on. And to be very honest, I don't think I called it building my own brand. Although I will say this, when you asked me this of like, can we talk about branding? I was like, why is the word branding giving me a knee-jerk reaction? And my very first big public speaking gig was, I was invited by Google to talk about branding online. And it was the first, and I knew fuck all Like, I had no idea. And I was like, really? And Google like, yeah, we'd love for you to come and talk to our execs and, you know, our key stakeholders about the importance of branding online. This was 2011, I think. So a long time ago, where at a time where, you know, talking about branding online wasn't that much of a thing. It was also in Brussels. Yeah, it was new. And it was Brussels, which is always 10 years behind. And I was like, oh, that's why the word branding stood out, because that was my first ever presentation I gave. But it was interesting to me that people were already looking at me back then as someone who's branding themselves online. But I don't think I really called it that. I just knew that I was a very curious individual. And I just knew that whatever path I was on, whether that was at uni, whether that was studying, whether that was in a job, I could never do just that. My mind was always on the peripheral. My mind was always like, yeah, this is cool. I'm working on this project right now, but oh my God, look at all of these shiny things that are happening over there. And so I needed to channel all of these things that I was excited by. And it started with a blog in 2009, I think. And then it went into podcasting. Then it went into writing a newsletter. And it was just, for me, it was a way of, I'm very curious. I find the world fascinating. I find people fascinating. I love to listen. I love to share. My love language is sharing links to things that I've read and things that I've discovered. And that turned into, oh, this is Toni branding herself. And then I realized very early on, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, where people thought I was a bit crazy, but that was it. I was always at the intersection of pop culture, politics and technology, because those are the three big buckets that I love. And I can't talk about politics without talking about pop culture and technology. I don't think we should be talking about tech without understanding politics and the political landscape. I don't think we could just talk about pop culture without understanding the politics and the technology. And so I realized, okay, that's my shtick. Whatever job I have, I'm always going to be doing something on the side, because people keep hiring me for the thing I'm doing on the side. But so that's where all of a sudden, 2 years ago, I'm doing full time all the things I'd been doing on the side. And that was a weird, I think, moment for me of just like, oh, wait, I don't actually have a day-to-day job anymore. I'm just doing all of these things. And even when the pandemic stopped again in commas, because I don't think it's completely stopped. I think it's a bit naive to say that, but when things started to go back to normal and we could get our visas and all of that, I had that opportunity of I could jump into a new job straight away. And I was like, hold on a minute, I've actually enjoyed this moment, this year where I've just been trying to figure shit out for myself. And why should I give all the knowledge and all my time to another company? Why don't I try and do something with it myself? That was a long-winded answer. You see, my bio is a lie on TikTok. I'm not blunt, brief, and succinct.
That was really insightful that you have said that you think most of your opportunities have come from the stuff that you've done in your spare time. And I wonder why that is, because I think we don't only live in a very competitive job market today. It's like, how do you stand out? And I think when you do stuff in your spare time, it's like it shows what you're really passionate about. You don't have the handcuffs on of the corporate company that you work for that's stopping you from saying X, Y, Z, and you have to do this. It's like, what do you actually really think about this?
And I actually asked one of my CEOs past years, why did you hire me? What was it about me that stood out? And it was very similar to what you just said. Part of it was I look at 100 CVs for the same job. They're all the same. Spectacular people, same degrees, same journey, same path. So you stood out because what you had, everything, this is it. Couple of boxes to check. Where did you study? What did you do? And then it feels like that little box at the end of what else should we know about you is so small. And I just made it really big. I kind of made it like half of my CV, where I was like, here's what you need to... I think it's changing ever so slightly. Yeah, I do think it's changing ever so slightly, and I think it's because. That's the wrong question.
Do you think it's more important now?
I think it is, but I think your first question was actually a better one, just because it shines a light on the world in which we live in today, and the access to the tools and the technology are more available than ever before. I mean, look at you and I. We're using a software that allows for you and I to get on a call, to record video, to record audio. We're going to press stop at the end of this, and magically all of this is going to be saved somewhere on the cloud. Fingers crossed, touch wood. But we don't think about these things anymore. We're able to connect with people worldwide. We're able to create podcasts and YouTube videos. at a quality that we've never seen before, at a price that's been lower than ever before. The tools are just exceptional. And I say this as someone who's just gotten very giddy and very excited by Descript. Do you know what Descript is? Have you ever heard of them?
No.
So Descript is this, it's another tool that I'm going to put you onto, is this phenomenal software that came out 5 years ago. And I'm not affiliated with them in any shape or form. I just love what they've built. And they allow people to edit audio by editing text. So you record a video or a podcast audio. It does the text, which now everyone's kind of just like, oh, this is cool. We get the text. Yeah, great. But then you can go into the document, delete words, replace words, and it just does it in the audio side. It is fun. It is mind-boggling.
Do you know what? Coincidentally, I actually do know these. I looked these up yesterday. I was looking for a way to convert my captions in Premiere Pro to text, and it came up with Descript.
And phenomenal. And honestly, one of the pieces of software I've used weekly for the last 4 years, couldn't live without. And now they're moving away from just podcasts and they're moving to video. And so now they allow you to edit slides and it goes into the video. And it's just a mixture of clever tools, AI, technology. I don't even know how I got onto this. But that's what I mean when I think why your first question was the right one is I think more and more of us are able to do these things that initially you'd have to go in, you'd have to have a degree in producing, you'd have to go into the BBC offices to edit a video, and then out comes the output, and that was probably took a team of 4 or 5 people and it took you half a day, whereas now you can do it in a couple of hours in your free spare time. So I think that is why more and more people are doing these extra, these what's the word I'm looking for, these extra pieces.
Let me just, I need to clarify what I'm curious on this tool. So I record a video.
Yeah.
Right. It captures what I say on a transcript.
Yeah. Transcribes it.
I can then take out words. How does that then affect the video?
Doesn't. It's just seamless. It just.
So if I want to take out some ums or that, are you saying that basically what it's doing is instead of me manually doing it in
exactly
editing software,
on your timeline, you can just do it in your text.
Oh,
and then there's a layer of AI, which is just like, can you take out all the ums and buts and spaces in between? 2 seconds, it's done, and it's very close to perfect. The other thing is when you're recording, once you've got, I think it's like a dozen hours of your own voice. If all of a sudden I say in the podcast, oh my God, yesterday I went to dinner and I was speaking with a friend, and you're like, oh, it wasn't yesterday, it was a week ago. You just replacing the text yesterday with a week ago. And because it's got all of this time of your voice and your audio, it will replace yesterday with a week ago without you having to go back and record it.
But then how does that affect the mouth movement?
They've
on the video.
Video is brand new, so you would need those hours of your mouth movement doing that. Audio, it's just seamless.
But I guess I've seen like the deep AI like video voice stuff, so I know that like a tool like that will be a polished tool like that, where like you said, I can record my video, put it into it. I can, if I actually, like you said, because sometimes I've actually said something and I'm like, oh shit, like I missed her. I should have. I said the wrong number, or I said something. I'm like, and what I'll do is I'll record it, re-record it, and then put it over it, but my mouth is not doing it. But I imagine that there will be software where it will change your mouth as well. I mean, and no one would notice. No one would notice it.
No, and so I think all of this is a perfect example of why people like you and I can do this, whilst also having a full-time job. That's your case, not mine today, because the tools allow us to work faster and smarter and get more done. So I do think we're seeing more of that. But going back to your point of just why was this so important to the CEOs is one, they were just like, you stand out. 2, it shows me that you've got grit and you're constantly innovating and you're doing things that we haven't seen other people do. And those are skills that aren't being taught in uni, that you've taught yourself, that we know that we can utilize, which is really interesting to us. And 3rd, it was for them, they were just like, this just shows me that once you will do things not just for a paycheck, and that's a weird way of saying this, but also you can self-regulate getting shit done. And that also is another skill set that we really like, which means that you're independent, which means that when we tell you to do a task, you're probably going to. And so it's all of these things that I think were just like little. And look, it's the smartest bosses out there that will look at this and deduct all of these skills versus, well, and I've seen people say, well, how much are you going to be dedicated to my job? And you're like, you don't understand. It's not about how much I'm dedicated to my job. It's like, there is so much that I'm learning on the side that is going to be useful for this job that you're not teaching me.
I'm so glad that you said shit like this, because the one thing that I have a problem with is LinkedIn. I don't go on LinkedIn. Do you know why I don't go on LinkedIn? It's because it's full of people writing stuff about an industry that they really care about because they're in the job. And basically what I ask myself is, if you weren't in that job, would you still write that? Would you still write that? Because if not, then you don't care about the industry. You're not passionate about writing that. You're just doing it because it looks good for your employer. Like, and I'm always like, LinkedIn is very like, how much is it actually people writing stuff that they actually really want to write about?
LinkedIn is an interesting one because I think it's definitely one that I'm curious about. And I used to be on LinkedIn when I was in the corporate world a lot, and a bit less these days, but I do think there's a missed opportunity. But there's something there that you've touched upon that I'm struggling with right now, which is that authenticity of brand.
There's no authenticity there.
And Descript is a perfect example. I've been the biggest evangelist for Descript. At this point, they should just pay me because I talk about them so often because I genuinely love that shit. And I have this in a world right now where the way I make money is one way I make money is by partnering with brands and by partnering with companies, and specifically in Formula One with different teams that I advocate for and that I'm excited about. And if I'm putting myself out there talking about a certain topic, that's going to attract people in that space. But the moment that there's an exchange, the moment that you get paid, I feel like that authenticity fizzle. And even I have a hard time being like, well, I genuinely want people to know that I was a fan about this thing before I started getting paid, and that they should just be excited for everyone that I can actually still do this thing and still get paid. And generally there are times where I discover whether it's a product, whether it's a team or a company, because they approach me and said, hey, would you be willing to work with us? And I say, give me a second and let me look through what you're doing. Let me see if I can get excited by this or not. But it just doesn't feel the same. So it's interesting because I'm struggling with that right now, of how do I make money by partnering with things and teams and businesses and people, but by keeping that authenticity, because I can't help, and this is just my perception of things, but I can't help that sometimes that authenticity just fizzles out a little bit the moment that there's an exchange, a monetary exchange that happens.
I completely agree.
Just hard. Just got to juggle with it.
One question I've got it's been stuck in my head. Since we about digressed about 15 minutes ago, this question is burning in my head. I want to understand, like, because I think it's a problem that a lot of creators have, is that like when you alluded to, like, you were driven to create, you started a blog and you were driven to create outside of work. How did you have a direction for your content in, like, were you putting pressure on yourself to achieve something from it? Because like from my own experience and like I see other people, everyone is always like tinkering with like, okay, this is the type of content I want to produce. Like this is like, I don't really know where it's going. And then sometimes I'm producing content and I'm like, I really know where it's going. But then a year later, then I've now gone to something else. Did you find that you were just like, God, the type of content and what you wanted to do was like constantly evolving? And how did you deal with that? Did that stress you out, that you weren't like really singular in what you were going for, and you were happy for it to just be random and just go with the flow?
I think it ebbs and flows. So the best way to answer that is, I think, I was thinking about this the other day. I actually wrote a blog post about this maybe a year ago, of the struggle I have as a content creator, in that I go from massive amounts of consumption. I consume so much, whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's newsletters, whether it's scrolling endlessly on Twitter, TikTok, and I get so excited by the possibilities, and I get so hyped, and I get so many ideas that it's overwhelming. And then I sort of crash, close it down, and go, oh my God, I don't know where to start. I can't even put an idea on a paper, and then you get into your own head and it's that cycle. What's the fucking point? All of this is incredible and great. I can't do it better than this. So you kind of give up and you go, you know, you sort of go back into a ball or in a hole and go, forget it. I'm just kidding. None of that was interesting. But then a little bit of time goes by and then you have a spur of an idea, or there's something that, you know, that you're still holding on to, and you're just like, oh, wait a minute, actually, that's a great idea. But that person forgot a parallel or forgot to talk also about this, and I can do that. And so you start creating, and then you get into that creating mode. I call it like the consumption creation paradox, but then you get into that creation mode and then you get excited by what you're putting out there. And this is where it gets dangerous, is a wrong word, but where I've struggled with, you get people giving you feedback of, oh my God, this is so good. I want more of this. This is great. And I say it's a problem because it's dangerous when you're only feeding off of what other people are telling you. And so, because then you start needing to create more of that. And then you have that moment of, is this the content I want to put out there? I have less the doubts about, is this the type of content? Because I'm very clear on the type of content I do want to create. And I'm very clear on the type of content that I don't want to create, which is problematic because the content that I don't want to create is the content that generally does really well, which is hyperpolarizing content, a little bit of misinformation, a little bit of got you, which I'm just not here for. That's the kind of content that goes viral. That's the content that gets you lots of followers. So my growth is generally slow and steady. But I do get into this endless loop of over consuming, getting really exciting, seeing all this content out there. And that for me sometimes is days of just me consuming. Then I definitely fall into this, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. I let that drown out a little bit, and then I get back into creating, and then you start creating, and then you need inspiration again, because you're just like, I don't know what else. And then you go, what I've said to a lot of people is, find your own consumption creation flow that works for you. I used to think that it was very black and white. I used to think I will consume in the morning, I'll create in the afternoon. Bullshit, did not work for me. Then I would go, well, I'll do 1 week on, 1 week off. Then I would do like, okay, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays I'll consume, and Thursdays, and then I will create. Your brain, you need to figure out what works for you. And I've stopped being so strict with myself and so hard on myself of, you said that Wednesday you were creating, now create. We're not robots. We don't work like that. Also, every time that I have planned videos, shit happens, whether this week it was like FTX or Elon, and every time I have an idea of something I want to write about Elon, he tweets another thing that's it, and I was like, oh, forget it, I've given up. So I'll just I will write what I want to write about Elon Musk and Twitter and that acquisition in a week or two when I've let it. So I think that's the thing, just you get so much inspiration from consuming, but also don't let that drive what you want to create, and don't let that sort of tell you, because we all have that little voice of, what's the point? Everyone else has already written about this or spoken about this or talked about this. And I think you just need to figure out what flow works best for you. And then I do think, to your point, you need to be clear on what it is you want to create and what format works for you. And the format piece was interesting because I dabbled and tried everything. And truly, I thought that the formats that would be the easiest for me ended up being the hardest. And the formats that I thought would be the hardest ended up being the easiest. I thought that writing a weekly newsletter would be super easy. I'm always writing. I've always got ideas. Yeah. And because I like things to be complete, and I like to expand. That goes back to the way I write at the intersection of all of these things. I can't just write about Elon's acquisition of Twitter, because I want to talk about the political ramifications, and I want to talk about the pop culture element of it, and I want to talk about the tech and the evolution of the tech. And so I end up writing 5,000 words, and I'm like, well, this is not a newsletter, this is a book at this point, what's the fucking point? And so I had a hard time of just write 3 or 4 paragraphs instead of trying to write the whole book about the topic. And so that was really hard, and I genuinely thought it was going to be easy. And then I thought that, for example, going live on Twitch for 3 or 4 hours a day was going to be really hard. And that was the easiest thing I ever did. I can free flow. I have studied long enough. I read, I consume, this is it actually, Ben. I consume so much that I can then press live and just regurgitate everything that I've consumed, and live create connections about all the things that I've just talked about, and go, oh my, exactly what we just did, by the way. When I was like, oh, I love Descript, and you had this question of, do you think it's more and more people are creating these extracurricular things? I'm like, I'd never actually thought about it in that way, but I was like, oh yeah, tools, easier, more accessible than ever before, which makes sense why we're having more people creating podcasts and newsletters and doing all of these additional things. That wouldn't have been possible from a technological point of view. That was just simply not possible 10, 15 years ago. It just wasn't a thing. So my brain works in that way. And so I generally thought that going live for a couple of hours a day would be really hard. And now going live for 3.5 hours is the easiest thing in the world for
Easy.
me. Easy. I'm like, how? Because and also the reason I thought it would be hard is because I overthink everything. And I think this is my time in politics. This is my time in academia of just like, I want to make sure that what I put out into the world is well thought through, is an actual thought that's helpful and useful and has merit and has backing. And I'm starting to be kinder and gentle with myself of, I'm a work in progress. So if what I say today is not completely accurate or not complete or maybe wrong, I can come back the next day and go, scrap what I said yesterday, the world's evolved. And so that was just a learning mechanism, but I definitely thought, and I'm glad, this is what I mean by try all of the formats, because truly I think what you think is going to be easy is going to end up being the hardest thing, and what you think is unattainable for you is probably going to be the thing where you're just like, this is cool. This is made for me. And if I hadn't have done a leap of faith and tried it, actually I should give credit where credit is due to the Twitch team. If they hadn't knocked on my door and said, hey, you like talking, we think you might be good for this, I might have not dared try it. But yeah.
Interesting, nice.
Yeah.
I have a question about, like, you mentioned about content that you usually don't want to create is the stuff that goes viral. And do you think being safer and almost, like you said, not creating content with misinformation and that kind of ruffles people a bit, do you think that has had a positive effect on you getting kind of more deals and relationships with brands because you've maintained your integrity by not doing that?
Yes, but also I know there's a way. What's the way of positioning this? I've always been, this is going to be a weird parallel, but I think we talked about this once before, but I always had this thought of, this is so weird to me that so many actors or superstars or well-known singers or you name it, bands, all of a sudden become activists. And I'm just like, oh, this is weird. Like, are they doing it because they feel they have to? Or are they doing it so that they look good?
We did
yeah. Do they actually care about this? And then Jamila Jamil came out and said one of the only reasons that I'm excited to be an actress that's well known is that I now have this global stage and this global voice that I can use for the activism that I've always done. And so there's a parallel there that I find interesting, that I sometimes question myself of, is it worth me pushing so far away this idea of virality and being a little bit polarizing so that my videos actually get viewed? Like, what's the point of talking about things that you deeply care about that you want people to see if no one actually sees it? And so is the way for people to see, and I'm talking about someone, for example, on Twitch or on TikTok when I started, that didn't have an audience. And so what does that look like? And so I go back and forth of, okay, where can I push the boundaries that still means that I'm not doing misinformation, I'm not being, eagerly polarizing just for the sake of, lighting something on fire. But I need my videos to be seen because I believe in what I'm putting out there and I want more people to engage with it. And I think it's an important message worthwhile. And so I go back and forth with this. But I will say it has attracted the brands and the people I genuinely want to work with. And that is more important to me. So I talk about this as well a fair amount of when a lot of my content I do on TikTok is primarily information about Formula One and motorsports and women in motorsports. And I, again, do it with this level of, or this layer of politics and technology and try and be a little bit unique, but it's all Formula One content. And when Aston Martin, which is one of the 10 teams on the grid this year, knocked on my door and said, hey, do you want to partner with us? I remember my knee-jerk reaction was, holy shit, okay, get prepared, get on the call, create a deck, create the whole thing, pitch to them my vision and convince them. And they were like, no, wait, hold on a minute. And I'm obviously simplifying here. They're like, no, we're convinced. We've joined your TikTok lives. We've consumed your videos. We've learned from your videos. We've shared your videos internally. We're convinced we want to work with you. And so I keep forgetting, shit, all the content I've been putting out there for a year was my portfolio, was the thing that attracted them to come. So there was no pitching involved from me. And so I had this moment of, oh, wow, this is easy. Wait, hold on a minute. It's not that it was easy, it's that I've done the work for a year and it's led me to this opportunity. And when I asked them, like, why me? And we had this conversation, they're like, well, your content resonated with us. It wasn't like all the other content. It definitely helped that you were women, or you are a woman. We were women consuming your content, which meant that the way you talked, the conversational nature of your videos, like, just brought us in. And we're like, this is what we're missing currently in Formula One. And you're very honest and you're very fair and you're not team centric, you're sport centric, which means that I love the sport in the whole, and I can find enjoyment in every team and any driver. And they're like, this is exactly what we're looking for. And so by staying true to myself, I attracted the types of people that I want to work with, and the types of people who would be put off with me putting out a video going, hey, I call bullshit on the We Racers One, which was a whole campaign that Formula One did 2 years ago about diversity and inclusion in the sport and racism, but it was really just like a feel good moment. There was no meat to it. If you're uncomfortable with, right? Exactly. And if you're uncomfortable with the fact that I call a bit of BS on all of this, you and I are probably not going to work well together. And so I think this is the danger and the trap that I say to people. If you only consume content that you don't really stand by, that's deeply polarizing, that's getting a lot of views, that's working for the algorithm, you're putting out a very clear message of the type of content and who you are as a person. But also it's going to attract people that you may not actually want to do business with, that you may not actually want to work with. So there is an element of be clear on the messaging that you're putting out there and the people that it attracts. Also believe that's why you can't fake it. Like, don't jump on someone else's hype. I've seen this a lot, by the way, with a lot of men I won't say a lot, a handful of men in the Formula One space who started talking about diversity and inclusion and getting more women at the table. They don't give a shit about it. They just saw that this content was doing well, and it was, and there was no meat to it. And so when people are just like, okay, we need your help, we need your support, you did this video, and they're just like, oh no, I'm just kidding. It did well with the views, and I guess this is the content that needed to be put out there. And you're like, oh, great. That didn't work in your favor, and it showed us your true colors. It's really hard to create content on a day-to-day basis that you don't believe in.
I guess it's like, it's that balance, isn't it? Like you said, of like everyone has this like type of content that they're really passionate about and want to create, but but the algorithm doesn't want that. So then how you said it perfectly, like how do you push the boundaries within your own content to get the views, but not push the boundaries too much that you put the brands off that you really want to work with?
And I think this is
really fucking tricky.
It's so tricky, Ben. It's so hard. And I think this is where you have to turn and look at some of the marketing geniuses that are out there. You have to look at the people who go, there's an art in creating a thumbnail on YouTube. Like, trust me, there's an art. And you go, but it's just a thumbnail. And you're like, no. The way we design it, the colors we use, the fonts we use, where we position things, that is the difference between you clicking on this video, not clicking on this video. And then once you're in the video, like, how do we get you to stay? And so these are the small things that I've learned of. Maybe it's in the editing versus the messaging. And so what I've started to do and these are small tricks that took me so long, because I was like, ew, I hate this. This is just me with a marketing hat. But no, it's that exactly what you're saying. It's that balance that I can start a video by saying, hey, you will never guess what I just learned. Easy. But already I said you, and there's so many data that says if you start a video in the first 5 seconds and use the word you, it hooks people in, because as human beings, you're like, oh, me? Okay, I'm in. If you tell them that there's really cool fact, and I was like, but is it a really, and I was like, it's a cool fact to me. So I can say there's this incredible thing that I've just learned. And then you use all of these little tactics, and that what you're actually saying is the same thing, but you've just edited it in a way that actually hooks people, because at the end of the day, that's part of great storytelling. And it also, I also don't do the polarizing stuff, because I just can't be bothered about it in my comment section. I just hate seeing people have, fight it out. You're right. Because that's it. That's what polarizing content is either people going, oh my God, you're so right, or you're so fucking wrong, or you stupid. And you're like, oh, here we go again. But at the end of the day, facts are bland and people want opinions.
Yeah, it's like when you create a piece of content that divides opinion, then it's the best, because then you've got 50-50 of people in the comments just like arguing with each other, like basically, like, I'm glad you talked about editing, because that's literally like where I'm at the moment, in terms of like my messages they're valuable. Like I truly believe in what I'm trying to educate people on.
Yeah.
But the problem that I've got is I'm just not delivering it and editing it in a way that does well on the algorithm. Like,
how do you know that? Is it just you're looking at numbers and they're just not there and you're just like, I know this should be doing better? Or is there something else? Is it feedback?
So I'm really like getting into like trying to back up how I've done something with data. But data being viral videos that are all similar to what I'm about to do a topic on at the same audience, and basically constructing my hook, my storytelling, my tone, my editing, my visuals, my lighting, all around what I've found is basically the commonalities between all of the viral videos that have already done well. So basing it off stuff that, instead of me going, that's a good hook, actually that's actually a pretty good hook. Says who? Says me in my head. That I've not backed up the fact that that's a good hook. I just think that it's a good hook just because I've used a hook. Like, I think we're like way beyond the point of like, oh yeah, use a good hook in your video. Yeah, what the fuck is a good hook?
Yeah.
Like, tell me what a good hook is, because a good hook is how do you know what a good hook is? It all depends on who your audience is, and like I've got this big Notion list of now, like I'm going through tons of viral videos, like of like what their hook is, like is this the same audience as my video, to then like help me construct a video that is my message, my original message that I believe is valuable. But now I'm actually, like you said, just doing a little bit of stuff that it's not me, it's not how I would say it in person, but it's just me just playing up a little bit to like to farm the views. Like,
I love that you've said that, because I've just had a realization of, we do this in our jobs, so why can't we do this in our creator space? You don't show up to work in a hoodie and flip-flops because just as what's most comfortable. I definitely, in the corporate world, I know that I needed to put a specific outfit on to sell. And the perfect example I've used so many times is when I worked for this tech company doing their European expansion. On any given day, I would need to be in the UK Parliament talking with politicians, or being sat in a team meeting with All Saints, which is a super duper cool like brand in the UK that sells like great denim and leather. Or I would be with Greenpeace or Oxfam or a non-profit. There is no one outfit, especially for a woman, that works to fit in and be taken seriously in Parliament, at All Saints or at Oxfam. And so most of my job, when I would have these 3 or 4 meetings in a day, I would be running around with a backpack and I would change outfits. So it would be suited and booted for politics. They would look at me and don't think twice, take me seriously. I would slap on heels and a leather jacket to go and sit into All Saints. And then with Oxfam, I would just keep the leather jacket and put on a pair of Converse and job done. I would fit. And I definitely had this moment after doing this for 5 years of who the fuck I am. Who am I? I have no idea who I am, because I feel like I'm playing a game and putting on a facade in all of these meetings. And again, it was one of those moments I had to be gentle with myself and go, actually, I know who I am. There are certain aspects that you have to play up so that you fit in and get the job done. And there are some people who go, nah, you have to like me for who I am and I'm unapologetic about it, and I'm going to go. And you do you. If that works for you, go. If you have the time and the patience to work 10 times harder, and don't get me wrong, sometimes you don't have a choice. There's definitely bias out there. There's definitely people who make judgments based on what you look like and who you are, which I fucking hate. And that's a whole other conversation for another day. But if you decide to not change who you are and you decide to go in wearing flip-flops and a hoodie and the politician should just take you seriously, you have to know that that comes with, it's going to be 10 times harder. And I was just like, I don't have the patience for that. I know who I am, but I also know how to play up so that I can get what I want from certain people. And I definitely had moments of, I feel icky and I don't like this. And I think it's exactly the same of what you've just described, of you can stay true to who you are and know what are the certain things that you need to tune up or dial down or dial up to make sure that your message actually gets across, because at the end of the day, that was most important. And I go back thinking, I know that what I am pitching right now is the right thing for this political party. I am adamant that Greenpeace needs this for their campaigning methodologies, etc., etc. So I am going to do everything in my power to make the person on the other side of the table take me seriously, build that level of trust. And if all that takes is me just dressing the part and making them feel comfortable and making me look like a valuable asset, I'm going to do it. But it definitely didn't come without those moments in life where I was like, oh, I hate myself. I hate everything about this, which I am now. I've never thought about this parallel, but it's exactly what you're talking about, Ben, in this creation, where you're just like, it's not how I deliver things. This is why I struggle with 60-second TikTok videos, because I end the video going, but there's so much more, and there's a caveat here. And by the way, this is the paradox of TikTok. I will do a video that will be 30-40 seconds, and equally in the same video, I'll get people go, oh, love, get to the point, will you? We didn't need those extra 20 seconds of you yapping. And I'm like, okay. Or I get, yeah, but you missed this, and you missed the history, and you missed the factual. And I'm like, it's a 30-second video. Which one is it? But I like when I get those two opposites of the spectrum in one video, because I'm like, oh, I'm never going to please everyone. In the same video, I have a dude complaining that I spoke too much, and it was 30 seconds. And I have a dude complaining that I missed the most important facts about this component. I'm like, okay, got it. And so that's those moments where I'm just like, never going to please everyone. But I really liked what you said there, because I think it is understanding, and it's just part of the business. What are the things you need to dial up and dial down?
Are you willing to play the game, essentially?
Are you willing to play the game? And it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I think you have to. On the rare occasion, there's probably 5% of people that just can just do it how they want to do it, and it works, right? There are some people where it just happens, but
and even that, I would say, I don't know if you've watched this video of the editor who edits for Logan Paul.
Yeah,
and you look at it, it's fascinating. Yeah. You look at Logan Paul, you look at Mr. Beast, and you think, oh my God, they just show up and they're authentically them. Oh no, everything is thought through. Everything is strategic. What stays in, what stays out, what gets tuned up, what gets tuned out, everything. And I think those are the best content creators, who make you think that this is just authentically them and this is what you're getting. And it is, because the best editors keep that authenticity, that if you meet them live, you're just like, oh, whoa, that you're so not what I expected you to be. Mm-hmm. But because they have this incredible skill set of editing the video, knowing how people engage with content, and keeping that authenticity of whomever, whatever content creator they work with. Yeah. And I think that's such an art and a science.
I completely agree. I think like the content has definitely shifted towards being more polished before to now like more raw and authentic. But raw and authentic is difficult to edit in a way that is good, because the polished stuff is edited really fucking well. And as a video, it's really good. You get the information, you get the delivery, you get whatever, but you lose the authenticity and rawness. So when you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, authenticity, rawness, but not much good editing, that doesn't get the views. So it's like, how do you get the editing or like you said, with the authenticity and the rawness? That's, I think, what a lot of people are trying to master at the moment.
And it's interesting you say that, because I have the two podcasts that I co-host. On both of them, it so happens that both people I co-host with on both podcasts are non-Americans. And every time when I sat down with the woman from Unapologetic Woman and the guy from another podcast, we both had this, we hit it off straight away with both of them, that we were very clear that we don't want to do uber scripted and uber edited podcasts. That's a very American thing right now, although it's shifting ever so slightly, that things are just cut and you go straight to, and you're just like, oh, I hate this is jarring, but it's super condensed, and in 20 minutes you get all of things, and it's extremely edited, it's extremely scripted, and you lose that authenticity. And with both of them, I was just like, we're on the same page. We want dialogue, and we want questions, and we want the ums and the ahs, and wait, hold on a minute, back up. I know you wanted to talk about something, but what you just said there was really interesting, and you go off on a complete tangent. But it doesn't mean that our podcasts are extremely edited. They are, but they're edited in a way that we keep the dialogue as is, and I edit everything around it. So I edit maybe the ums and the ahs, or I bring, we jump in straight away. But other than that, it remains unscripted and unedited, in that we're not touching the dialogue part. And so I've had to figure out what all the other things that I can edit, so that the podcast feels edited and like a final product and good. But the dialogue is unscripted and unedited. So that was an interesting one for me, because we wanted to stay true to that. And so I had to teach myself of how do you edit a podcast without actually editing a podcast.
Yeah, it's like I find that some podcasts are edited like a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Like it's like question, answer, question. Like it's like how can we pack as much value as possible into as little time as possible by getting those the valuable answers that the guest has given in like you said in 20 minutes, but then it loses that authenticity because it's literally just a rapid fire Q&A.
Yeah.
And some people like those. Some people,
and
I think it's
that's
different.
I was going to say that
form of
it's
content,
different,
right?
but also I think contextually we were very lucky with both our podcasts that both of these went live just before and just after the pandemic. Just before the pandemic started and just after the pandemic, which meant that we were at a time when no one was out and about just overhearing conversation. And the number one feedback I got for both podcasts is, oh my God, I love this. I feel like I'm back in a bar or a restaurant and I'm overhearing a really interesting conversation and a dialogue, which a lot of the podcasts out there at the time weren't doing. It was, to your point, Q&A, but we were at a time where we were missing human interactions. And so that actually played in our favor so much because we put out these two podcasts that were very conversational and all about the dialogue and all about those interactions at a time where we were all stuck at home. And so it was really interesting that the number one feedback we got is, oh my God, for that 40 minutes, I just felt like I was in a cafe or in a bar or in a restaurant and I was overhearing a conversation and a dialogue, and I missed that so much. And so again, like contextually, these things matter. Not to say that maybe in a year or two, I might have to change that and people will be over 40-minute podcasts and they'll be like, no, I just give me the information that I need right now.
Just briefly,
context matters.
What are your two podcasts on? Like what, sum them up.
So Unapologetic Women, it was a desire for me and my old co-worker who still works at Nation Builder, the company, the tech company I used to work for. And we realized at the time that I never say every, but a lot of the podcasts with two female co-hosts were all very conversational. It was all about relationships and sex, and great, no issues with that. But we're like, where are the very serious podcasts about tech and politics where there's two female co-hosts, and they just weren't there. And again, we wanted to stay true to who we are, which is her and I talk 2 or 3 times a week for about an hour, 2 hours about world politics, about tech, because that's the space that we work in. So Unapologetic Women is that. It is truly just like the lay of the land when it comes to politics and tech, and a deep dive into these big topics, whether that's censorship, whether that's free speech. And we're both European working American, so we have that constant overview of what it looks like to look at American politics from a European perspective and look at European tech from an American landscape. So, and then another podcast is with a co-host called Benedict Evans, who is an incredible tech analyst, and so that's very much a tech podcast. So that is looking at the big tech trends that are happening right now and sort of doing a deep dive into certain topics. Those are the two podcasts.
Is that consuming? So talk me through like your like what's consuming your time? Like you've got your two podcasts, like you're doing your TikTok, like how the fuck are you doing all this? I don't know, and I'm struggling right now with it's so interesting that you said that, Ben, because I just had a conversation with my husband just yesterday of like, do I need to change the way I work in that I give myself one project 1 week, get the project done, off onto the next? Because right now I feel like there are projects that I've been working on for a year and they're moving, but they're moving ever so slowly because I have 20 fucking projects going on. And some projects there's maybe no close, there's no finish, like the podcast, it's every week. So there are things that I do, and I have many of those that are just daily things. And so it's the two podcasts, you record, you prep for them. So that's like, I want to say 3-4 hours a week of recording, prepping, and then there's the editing, and then there's the publishing. And so that's only like 8 hours a week on the podcast. And then it used to be a newsletter, but I put that on hold. And then there's the Twitch streaming, which is now about 8 to 10 hours a week that I stream. And then there's the TikTok videos. And there's a great anecdote, and I'll give a shout out to Jack Cook, who is an incredible filmmaker based in LA. Lunch with him a couple of months ago, and he does these incredible, I think he just hit 400 every single day on TikTok. He puts out a video that is like a daily vlog. It's a voiceover, and he's a great editor, so he puts these little stories together, and he's an incredible storyteller.
And on top of that, he's editing podcasts for other people, and he's always on jobs filming, and then he's editing the movies that he's making. Like, he's very busy. And I said to him, how the fuck do you put out consistently and have for 400 days? And at the time it was maybe 350 or 370. Have you put out consistently every single day a video? How do you like make time? I think the way I phrase it is, how do you make time for this, which is not bringing you any money when you've got all of these other client work you need to do? And he's like, you're thinking about it all wrong. And I was like, well, tell me. I was very skeptical, but also very curious what he was going to come with. And he's like, no, that is my number one priority. Those TikTok videos that I put out every day is my number one thing that I will get done, rain or shine, whatever happens, every single day. And I was like, but how do you prioritize a thing that brings you no money? He's like, because every single opportunity I have gotten was because of these videos. Every single last one. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly to your point. Every job that I got was the extracurricular activity, so I never stopped. By the way, when you actually get a job that you really love, that job becomes all consuming, and you start to see dwindling all the extra stuff that you were doing for fun. You stop doing those, which means it's really hard to get your next gig and your next job, because it's all about the job that you're in right now, and all of those fun things that people used to hire you for have disappeared. And so he was like, they are, these videos, as trivial as they may look or sound, are my number one priority, because it shows people that I'm consistent. It shows people that when I put my head to something, I will do it every single day, no matter what. And it shows people that I'm a great storyteller. It also helps me evolve. If you look at the first video he's done and the 400 video, they've gotten exponentially better. So it's a skill set. And so I remember one of the first questions you asked at the start of this podcast was, do you set yourself goals? And that is something I taught myself 2 years ago, is I don't actually set myself goals. I set myself to create new habits. So one of the habits that I had also done, like him, was put out a TikTok video every single day. And he is absolutely right. There are days that I don't do it, and I fall out of that habit very quickly. Guaranteed that every time, one day I have not put out a TikTok video, I didn't put out a video the following day or the third day. And so you fall out of habits really fucking fast. And so that's the thing that has now been top of mind. So that's more of an anecdote that I thought was so helpful, because he like hit the nail on the head for me with that. But what I am currently rethinking right now is, how do I get it all done and keep it enjoyable? And how do I juggle with, I have big projects that I want to get done, but I also have a bunch of day-to-day weekly projects. And I don't have an answer right now. I have definitely realized that doing the Mondays I do this, Tuesdays I do this, when it just doesn't work for me, because there are days there are days where you feel utterly inspired to edit videos, and I could edit shit for 5 hours and be exponentially happy. And it's because I realize it's days that I probably consumed a lot, and my brain needs to just be on pause and just do manual tasks that I know how to do without overthinking it. And then there are days where I actually need to just write and just get my ideas out there. So I definitely haven't figured it out. But the only reason that I'm able to do all of these things is, and this is the thing, my big sort of, as someone who said I don't do goals, but my big goal for next year is, how do I make the most use of everything that I put out there? Like, how do I reuse content? So I used to be like, every video that I put on TikTok is unique for TikTok. I will never repost it on Instagram. And I was like, that's BS. Just repost it, because actually my audience on Instagram is definitely not following me on TikTok. And some of those videos, and so now I just take some of the best educational videos that I put out on TikTok and put them on Instagram, and my stats and numbers have just boomed. I was doing nothing on Instagram, apart from sharing stories. But I went from 4,000 to 10,000 followers in 4 months, just because reels are doing, and it goes to the conversation we were having. I didn't want to do reels, but I was like, I've got this content for TikTok ready to go. Why don't I just repurpose it and use it? And there's no shame in that. And no one, to this day, by the way, no one has complained and said, oh, you're cheating, or, oh, I've seen this video already on. No one cares, because it's two different audiences. So that's the big thing I'm trying to teach myself, is how do I repurpose all of this? If I go live on on Twitch for 4 hours, what content can I repurpose? I should just put this on YouTube. Some people will watch the VODs on YouTube because they don't know what Twitch is and have no desire to be on Twitch. That's the biggest mistake I think I've done, and not a mistake, but I just haven't leaned into, is repurposing my content.
I get you. This is I pose the dilemma that I have, and you probably will have with that, is that, like, when you're time poor, repurposing takes more time. And
yeah,
I'm always at that dilemma as, well, I could put this there and clip this up and put there, but what is the value that that's going to bring me if it doesn't bring me loads of views?
yeah.
Like, what is it that I'm getting out of that if I'm putting in an hour into it? Could I put that hour into something else? Because the output isn't super high quality and tailored to the platform and tailored to an audience. It's just me repurposing. And I'm like, oh, I'll give an example for one for the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe today. I'm thinking of like just taking clips, like 3 or 4 or 5 minute the best Q&As,
Yeah.
and putting them on a separate YouTube channel, but where they're not then, because I don't have time to edit them. I don't have time to create a thumbnail, but I want to put them there because they're valuable. But I'm not creating them to farm views. I'm putting them to be a library of valuable content for people. But then I'm like, that's going to take me an hour, 2 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what return am I getting on that apart from giving value to some of my audience on my channel that might find it? Is that worth 2 hours? And that's the dilemma that I put myself when it comes to like repurposing. Like, how do I don't know the answer to that question. But that's the problem that I have being so time poor, is how am I spending my time doing the most valuable thing, both short term and long term?
So I've discussed 2 things to that, because I'm exactly the same headspace, Ben. I discovered something about myself, which is I am way more productive when I am time poor, because I don't fucking overthink things. Yeah. I'm just like, I have 3 hours. So when I used to have a full-time job, I have 4 hours after the job is done to get this shit done. And so I just wouldn't overthink it. I just get it out the door, job done. Now that I'm less time poor, my God, do I sit here and ponder life and overthink things and go, I'll put it out. It's just so bad. So that is I'm trying to create a time poor schedule for myself, as weird as it sounds, so that I bang stuff out the door like as fast as I humanly can. Because everyone is different. So I'm not here gonna, preach what people should do, but it was a very interesting discovery for myself that, oh my God, I am way smarter with my time. I'm way more productive when I am time poor. It's just the way because I have the capacity to overthink life. The other thing that I would say is going back to Jack Cook and his, essentially that's what I was saying. Like, how do you prioritize this? And why the fuck are you spending 2 hours a day editing these cute little videos when they bring you nothing? And I think it's because the ROI isn't as fast or as obvious as what you would think it is, but it is going to pay you dividends, and it's going to pay you tenfold, maybe a year from now. And so again, with me creating 250 videos for absolutely no other reason, it was cool content, I was creating a community, I was loving the audience that I was building, got me Aston Martin. The work that I've now done with Aston Martin has 4 or 5 other teams on the grid knocking on my door going, hey, can we do shit together? So everything, I feel that every output you put out in the world, if you believe in it, even if it's repurposed content, someone is going to pick it up. And truly, this is how I'm thinking about my 3-hour long live streams on Twitch. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to take the 3 hour, I'm going to dump that on YouTube, because there's a whole segment of people similar to what I did with TikTok videos and Instagram, is those people consuming my content on Instagram are 100% not consuming this content on TikTok. So they would be willfully unaware, and they were willfully unaware of my content until I started posting it there. But I'm going to put my full VODs because there are people, I am not this person, but that's because I love spending time on Twitch. But it's not because I'm not this person that there are hundreds, if not tens of thousands of people who consume full VODs of Twitch on YouTube.
Yeah, people don't. That's that.
They do.
So they do.
They do.
I guess this is the
they
problem.
Do.
That, like, you're in that's the exact same predicament that I'm in. That it's like you're putting something out that a lot of people aren't going to watch. And that's what you're based on all your other content. Like that's what the value is. The value is views, TikTok views, like blah, 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 views. Like that's the most obvious metric to give you some sort of like, yes, well done. Like, but then,
which is terrible, by the way, because everyone, your boss has become your whole audience, which is just a frightening thing. But
again, you putting those VODs there in 2 years' time could lead to an opportunity that goes. But then how do I convince myself that that's going to happen if it's not
Because that's 5 minutes. You download the VOD, you upload it, you find a nice image to kick off the video.
It's not 5 minutes.
It kind of is. And this is what I mean by time poor is you look at that, that has to download. Whilst that's downloading, you're like, great, I'm going to film 4 or 5 TikToks. And by the time I've filmed those 4 or 5 TikToks, create that time poor mentality, come back and that VOD is ready and you put it. And I know it's not 5 minutes, so let's say it's an hour, but this is where you get creative. And so on Twitch, I've started, okay, I can start bookmarking when I say something that's smart. And again, give credit where credit is due to Blake, who has been done, like all of his numbers have grown, whether it's Twitch, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter. And what I realize is because he is repurposing all of his content and doing it really smart, which all of his social media are growing simultaneously. And he gave me a couple of tips, one of which is when you go live, stick to you being live and be authentic, but think about 2 or 3 things that you want to get out. And I know I prepare my lives. I have the 5, 6 big topical discussions that I want to have. And he's like, go in there with what are the 2 or 3 things that you want to say, clip those, use those and put them on Twitch and put them on TikTok, put them on Instagram, and then put them on short form videos on YouTube as well. And so the way I'm looking at my 3-hour live streams is take the 3 hours, dump it on YouTube, then take a condense, and I'm going to use Descript for this because I actually think that program will help me get this done really fast. Condense the 4 or 5 topics. So basically turn it into a 30-minute video. You didn't have time to join the live. You don't have time to listen to 3 hours of me rambling, which again, I would never listen to a VOD, but I absolutely join live streams for 6 hours. So again, it's people work in different ways. Create a 30-minute debrief so that people have hey, here's what happened in the world of Formula One this week, because some people just, to your point, some people just want, give me the 10 facts, give me the 5 things I need to know so that I can look smarter to my audience or to my peers. And then clip those 30-minute segments into what are those 5 stories within that 30-minute. And all of that is there. But to your point, the reason why I say is it's a waste of my time. It's not that it's a waste of my time. It's I fucking loathe doing this. I loathe the standard editing with no storytelling approach. I'm just, here's a 3-hour video, here's the 30-minute video, and here are the 2 to 5 minute videos. I don't enjoy that. But then I have to go back to, if this is the job that you want, treat it as a job. Every single person that has a job has 20% or 30%, sometimes more, which I feel for you, and I'm very sorry, and it sucks, and I've been there, of that job that you don't like doing. That could be the admin task, that could be, the shit that we just don't like doing. That's part of it. That is that editing for me is that 20% that's just part of the job. And the job doesn't get done unless you do that.
Yeah.
And so the way my brain has duped me in thinking it's not worth it. I don't fucking know if it's not worth it. I just haven't done it because I don't get excited by it.
That's true. I'm gonna. So me and Beck had a conversation the other day actually, and we had a similar conversation about live stream content for YouTube, and we had this agreement. It's going to be a longish explanation. We were trying to work out, and I'm here for it. Like, because of the content that he creates, he is in the dilemma of whether can he create content for YouTube based off of his live stream. And the challenge that he has got is that in order to produce something of the quality that he wants on his live stream, he has to plan that. It's not just this, he'll have to do some planning, which would take 1 to 2 hours probably, and then the live stream, and then chopping that up and editing it, which would probably take a little bit longer because it's basically an answer or topic that's been kind of given over a longer period of time. And actually the planning, the live stream and the editing after is just not a better
outcome.
Is not a better outcome than just than planning the video and doing the same content off stream and putting on YouTube, because the outcome is a higher quality, and actually the time it takes to do that higher quality video is actually not really any different than doing it from a live stream. Yeah. And so actually we're like, why don't you just sit back and just enjoy the live stream then, rather than it like being, oh, I'm going to need to create this piece of content that I planned. Actually, the 2 or 3 hours that you're live on stream is not a waste because you're fully engaged with the community and not worrying about the content.
Yeah.
So we had that like conversation that I thought was super interesting. Like,
it's like, what can you, and I think this is where it's going to be different for everyone. It's like for me, I've started looking at my live streams as well, and I'm all out for like, I'm going to throw everything at the wall, because again, to my point of what I thought was going to be easy and I would enjoy, I ended up being really hard and not enjoying. And the stuff that I was like, I'll give it a shot, again, like Twitch, I'll give it a shot, I'm not sure this is for me. I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely my realm. This is tailor-made for what I love. So I'm in a phase right now where I'll throw everything at the wall and see what sticks and see what works and see what I like. But the way I've approached now my live streams is, during my live streams, because it's a constant dialogue, someone will prompt me with a question like, I don't have an answer, but my God, this needs to be a TikTok video. And I will say it live, and I will note the timestamp, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to think about what TikTok video I'm doing tomorrow. This is it. Or so I'm treating my live streams as this constant dialogue that's giving me food for thought, that's giving me ideas for TikTok videos, that's helping me build relationships, that's helping me get ideas for the next merch. And so maybe right now my live streams are not content I can repurpose easily, but maybe what it is 3 hours well spent, because I'm building this community. And by the way, when I say well spent, I will do this, I still love it, but there is a point in which this is 8 to 10 hours, and I think it's the same for Blake, out of a week, where I'm not able to make money elsewhere. So you have to make it worth your while, which again is part of the, I just want to be a creative creator and do it. It's bullshit. You have to make money off of this, or you can't do the thing that you want to do. So I do think there's something interesting of what can you get out of it. But the one thing that I would push back on is, what's the downside? And that's where I'm right now. What's the downside of just downloading my 3-hour stream, putting it on YouTube? And if there are no views, I know that the downside could be people look at this and go, oh shit, she has really poor views. But so be it. I know that I'm interesting enough that if people see 3 or 4 minutes of my video, they're either going to like what I have to say or not be interested. And again, it's because, and I look at this, which is, there are 2 types of people. And I think I asked you this the first time we met, is, do you want to build a company that has nothing to do with you and you're just building stuff out there in the world? Or do you want it to be about you and the value add that you have to bring to the table as a content creator, which has pros and has cons? The pros is you can be yourself authentically and people are going to love you or hate you. The con is it's always about you, which means you always need to be on, which means the days that you are sick or don't feel well, there's nothing for you to put out there if it's all about you. But that's where my head is at, is what is the downside of just, you've got the content, you might as well just download it and upload it on YouTube and see what sticks, and you might be surprised, which is again what I did with my TikTok videos and Instagram. I was like, let's do 10 and see if what works.
Well,
and I realized
you're starting from nothing, right? In
nothing.
Terms of this start. Exactly. So I actually think that, like, from your perspective, like doing it the way that you're doing it is like, it's like you said, building a habit of doing it. Building the habit. Building the habit of like doing that slightly, well, I say slightly boring editing, but you clearly quite like it. Like when you're just getting the clips, putting them up there, and then I guess then you have your own time frame in your head where you go, okay, we'll be doing this for 2 months, like how can we make it better, right?
How can you make it? And look, when I first started editing my podcast, it would take me 3 hours. I bang out an edit for a podcast now in 30-40 minutes because I've worked with the same co-host, so I know exactly how we speak, I know exactly how what needs to be edited out, I know exactly what I need to do. And so I've gone from something taking me 3 hours to something taking me 45 minutes, job done. And some days it's going to take longer. So I do think building the habit.
How'd you do it in 45 minutes?
Skills. Descript, like skills and Descript. I lie, it's not skills, it's all technology. Descript, because I see the text that's transcribed and I'm looking at this and I can go through it and then I pull it up on a timeline and I go, okay, I'm just going to edit out all of these long pauses, put that together, takes out all the ums, takes out all the ahs, job done. And all it takes is me just re-listening once to the whole podcast and it gets done. And also I taught myself, and I listen to it and I edit it now as soon as we've done, because it's fresh in my mind. I remember exactly the conversation I've had versus what I used to do is editing is on Fridays. And so I edit all my podcasts. It doesn't fucking work.
It doesn't work. It's not working for me. And then I end up not watching it and I just I half watch it and I'm like, oh, I'll be fucked. Or I forgot on the special bits or whatever. And then I've got to watch it all again to find the special bits.
And if you're doing long form conversations like we're doing, it's a lot of time.
It's time consuming. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I can create for myself that works for me, that outputs the highest quality of content.
It's always that, isn't it? It's like, how do we work smarter? And I go back to, there are tools today that just make it that we can actually be smarter and use our time more wisely.
Yeah, I'll pay anything for something that saves me time. Not literally, but like, I will pay, like, if something can save me an hour, 2 hours a week doing something, I'll pay like 20, 30, 40 pound for that, because I'm like, well, I always go back to, I don't know what book I read it from. I think it was something like where you always just like, am I worth more than £30 an hour? Like, I'm worth more than £30 an hour. Yeah. So would I pay a tool to save me an hour? Yeah. Well, it's a no-brainer. And yet you've got people not even, like, people who won't pay £5 for something. I'm like, that'll save you streamers like won't pay for something. I'm like, that will save you so much time. Like, start thinking about time with money, and you'll make so many better decisions with stuff that you buy, like tech, to help with content. I'm always, like you said, I'm always looking for new tech to save me time, because like I said, all streamers and all content creators are always time poor, because you've got 100 things to be doing. You've got 100 projects that you want to be doing, and you just like you said, as now that tech and tools are more accessible, and then they're not too expensive. You can definitely.
We've got no excuses these days.
No, there is no excuses. But
and it's interesting, because it is that the hardest thing for me has been that constant context switching of what's the thing that I need to get done today that needs to go out, that I need to spend an hour on. What's the project that I've been working on for 2 years that I just need to move every day a little bit further. Then what's the shorter term project that's still a month, a quarterly project that I still need to get. And that for me is so hard, and again, I need to create that time poor mechanism, because else I overthink things too much. But that context switching isn't quite working for me. So I'm trying to rethink that. And maybe it's just treating every project like a weekly project or a monthly project. I don't know what the answer is. But that
you're struggling to finish stuff like that.
Struggling to finish stuff, or get excited, or go, I'll. My newsletter is a perfect example, that I was doing it once a week, and then I realized, I'm overthinking it. This is not working. And I thought, I'm going to press pause on it for a couple of months and come back and read. It's been a year. I haven't opened up my newsletter in a year. And now it's been so long that I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to send I don't want to be the asshole that sends a newsletter and everyone's going to unsubscribe, because they're like, what was this thing I subscribed to? I don't need this anymore. And so you leave things too long. And so I'm bad at, I have big projects that I'm trying to move bit by bit. And then there's people, and again, this is about the people you work with and the people you surround yourself with, where the people come in your inbox and go, I need an answer now. And you're just like, you went quiet on me for 4 months, fuck off, stand in line. And that's where you have to know your worth, which is so incredibly hard as a content creator when you work on yourself and you've got no boss going, you're doing a good job. To know your worth of going, no, you ghosted me for 4 months. I know you've got a timeline now, but you can sit back and wait, because why should I move my whole schedule to accommodate you when you were nowhere to be seen for 4 months and I was following up nonstop. But that's really hard to do when you're a content creator and this is a job and this is potential money on the table. So of course you're going to try and get to it as fast as you can, which is not always ideal.
I think like what you said about the project, it's all about that. The thought that popped into my head was just like the habit building. Always get like you get some excitement from somewhere about an idea that you had or a project that you had a while ago, and then unless you then and there decide to build a daily or a 2 or 3 day habit that then starts to introduce the work that you need to do on that project back into your life, that excitement then dies, and then the thing that is basically consuming the other exciting things that you're also doing that you've already built the habits for, then basically go back to consuming all of your time, and that thing that you had that excitement about but didn't then build the habit for then just disappears again. I get this all the time, and I'm like, fuck's sake. I'm like, I had that amazing idea, and I'm like, oh my God, why have I not started doing that? And then tomorrow I wake up and then I'm back to making TikToks, and I'm like, I've forgotten about it.
You know what's
challenge of life?
Challenge of life, truly, because basically people think that I think what creators do is just faff around all day, and we can make up our own schedule, and that is true. And there are absolutely days where I'm just like, I'm not fucking feeling it. Like I need a me day, and I've after 15 years in the corporate world, I know what those days are like, and I'm just like, I'm going to be completely pointless today, so I'm just going to read a book. And I know that me consuming, reading a book, watching movies, doing something is going to give me ideas. Like, I just know that. So I'm just like, it's not time. It is actually time well spent, and it's good for my mental health, whatever, it's great. But there is someone that I am absolutely in awe of in his work ethic, and that is Hassan Piker, in that he treats his streaming like a fucking job that he shows up at every single day, 11 a.m. and logs out 6, 7, 8 p.m. But rain or shine, he's there, he logs in, and that is his habit that he has been. And what I love is, I always wonder, how does this guy get anything else done? Because the way I look at it is, I have things that I was supposed to be streaming yesterday, and then my dog got sick, and I was like, I just can't. My dog is going to be my priority, and there's no one that can that can take over for me. So I'm the one that's going to have to look after the vets and all of that. But there is something incredible for me of someone who's just like, no, 11 a.m. every day I go live, and that what he has built with his audience. There's no faking that. And it's the same with, at a lower level, with Jack Cook, with every day you get a storytelling, every day you get a video of what he has done, and you learn something new, and you build that rapport, and you build that trust. And I had that moment the other day when someone said, hey, can you just confirm that you'll be going live Thursday at 11 a.m. because I'm trying to organize a dinner party and I want to make sure. And I was like, oh my fucking God, what? And I kind of wanted to scream, like, go to your dinner party. Are you insane? But I do that. I get sad when there's a schedule thing that's supposed to happen that doesn't happen. I'm like, where's my weekly video?
You're in that schedule.
I'm in, and that's it. And that is it, Ben. You're in someone's schedule. So treat it like a job, because that's how you make your money. That is how you build your audience. That is how you build. And I think the most important thing that we haven't actually touched upon is, how do you build that relevancy? How do you remain relevant in this industry, in this space, and with this audience? And it's by showing up, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly, and that's where I failed with my newsletter. It wasn't getting delivered on a weekly basis, and there's no excuse. It's a weekly thing. You should be able to put it out there. And I think the moment that you don't deliver and treat it like a job, I think you start losing trust in people, which I think is hard to build and easy to break. Now, I say that and I caveat all of that with, I am a firm believer, and I've gone back and forth with, put out content when you've got great content to put out there, and don't force yourself to put out weekly, daily stuff if it's actually going to be shit. It's not worth it. Yeah. And I go back and forth. And again, going back to the initial conversation we had right at the start, I do think there's a way of staying consistent and staying true to who you are, and putting stuff out there on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and put out stuff that you are proud of.
Yeah.
I think there's a way of doing both. And I think the way you do that is, you can't just be thinking today about the video you're putting out tomorrow. And we spoke about Notion. I have a Notion board with over 250 videos that I want to create. And some of those videos I've been working on for 3 weeks. And some of them...
250?
Yeah.
How does that look, though, in the list? Or is it like in a page?
I don't think I can... Oh, I can actually share my screen. Do you want me to share my screen? I don't know if this works.
I want to see how you...
Share entire screen. I can do this, and then I can, this is gonna be fun. Oh, now I need to choose this. This is what it looks like. Can you see my screen?
There we go. Oh shit. Yeah, I see it was on.
Okay. So this is all the published videos for this year. So every video I create in TikTok is worked on. Every video has well, this is a bad example. Every video has sources. Every video has a script that I've written. And I'm thinking of putting this on Patreon, because every video has all of the content. But then these are the videos that this is my schedule for this week.
Yeah, it's like,
so I want to do a video today.
Board,
on the future spot. So it's Kanban mode. And then I've got series, and then I've got all the contents that are being researched and written. And there's 36, 30, 50. So there's about 100, 150 videos there that are being worked on as we speak.
Nice. Yeah, that's similar to mine.
So, but it's interesting, because this is what we think about when we, this is how my brain works. And so when I talk about repurposing content, I'm just like, oh, my Notion board should be a Patreon. My Notion board should be a Patreon feature, where you have access to the 350, 400 videos I've been creating for the last 4 years, and you can research them, and there's additional sources, because I do that work already. So why not put that behind a paid tier that some people would absolutely pay for?
That's more time though. That's more time though. That is to polish it.
It's not. It's to polish it, but not really, because it's done. But this then is where I think exactly like you. I'm like, oh, but is this worth paying for? Is this good enough? Maybe I need to add pictures, and then I overthink it.
It's another project. It's definitely another project.
It's definitely another project. It's definitely going to take time to create it, but I think it becomes passive income because I'm not fake. Yeah. I'm not pretending that this is how my videos are being done. This is exactly how my videos come to life. I research them, I have interviews with people, I put the link to the interview if it's lives somewhere, I put the link to the YouTube videos, I screenshot shit, I put it in the doc regard because that's how my brain works. So there's an additional, I'm going to call it time fee to set it up. But then I think it becomes passive income. But to your point, where I get stuck is I overthink it. I don't think it's good enough. But where my friends around me go, your level of output is so much higher than most people because you are so hard on yourself, but also you expect people to deliver the same level, that most people aren't there. And so your all of this Notion board could absolutely be put behind a $5 paywall for a Patreon account. 100%. Why I haven't done it, I don't fucking know. And I know that the day I do it, I'm going to think, why did I not do this 2 years ago? This is X amount of money that I've now left on the table because I didn't do it sooner.
You better add it to the list.
Add it to the list. And so it is true. I have a Twitch project, I have a YouTube project, I have a Patreon project, and then I have a movie project that I'm working on. I have a book project that I'm working on. And to your point, what do you prioritize? You got to prioritize the stuff that's going to bring revenue.
Yeah.
In my opinion, right now, for me.
Yeah, I guess. But then, it goes back to that point, how
time,
evaluating, time and revenue, what is worth my time?
What is worth it? And I think this is where you need to prioritize it's that question, Ben. What is worth my time? And again, I go back to Hassan, where I'm just I find it fascinating because yes, I want to do the 2-3 hours, and it's only for me two to three times a week going live. But now I'm going on site and I'm working with Formula One teams, and I'm spending a week in the garage with them, 3 days prior to the GP, then 2 days during the race weekend. And those are 5 days where I'm not creating content for other stuff, but for my TikTok accounts, which is where my head was at. I was like, if I'm going to spend a week and I'm being paid X amount of money, it has to be worth my time. And it's hard to sell because this is the difference between influencers and creators is I'm not going to companies and saying, I have 2 million followers. You should absolutely pay me 10K for this week of me working. I'm saying you should pay me 10K. And I'm just throwing that number out there. Not because I have, a small number of 80,000 followers on this platform and 20 here and 10 here, but because I am going to create 10, 15 pieces of exceptional content where your branding is going to be everywhere. And so that's what I did with Aston. I spent a week at the Austin GP with them. I've 15 or 16 ideas of videos. I've maybe put out 10 already, but it's all the Aston branding and it's great for the Aston branding. But that is the pitch that I am putting out there is the return on investment isn't going to be immediate. Because I'm not putting out a video to 1 million people, but I'm putting out a whole content series that is going to start getting people to love your brand and see your brand as a brand that's working with content creators, which is something new and innovative and pretty cool from this space. But it needs to be worth my time because during that week, I'm not able to do anything else because it's long fucking hours. It's 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night in the garage with your eyes basically darting everywhere, being a sponge.
Yeah.
And trying to create on the fly all of these different stories. And I just did one the other day of just what Formula One, what kind of innovation did Formula One take from IKEA flat pack, quick build kitchens? And it was a great story. But that came to me because I spent 6 hours in a garage talking with people about how Formula One cars are built. And then there was a little nugget of information that someone shared with me. And I was like, oh, there's a thread to pull on. And that thread led me to this 30-second video. But where my head is at now is maybe I should be doing long form YouTube videos because I will make money from YouTube. I'm never going to make money from TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok will be my portfolio. So again, I need to be smarter about maybe it's time for me to launch a YouTube channel. Because then it doesn't matter if you're only going to pay me $6,000 for that week or $10,000 because I can make money from AdSense. And then that start becoming interesting to me where I can potentially say, I don't even need to be paid for spending a week in a garage or at a GP with you where I can't do anything else because the video that I'm going to produce as a result of this on YouTube is going to make me tenfold that money if I'm good at it and if my videos are good. But right now, the problem with with TikTok is it's bringing me my next gigs, but my next gigs need to be worth it, because TikTok in of itself as a platform isn't paying me shit, you know.
So you're saying, like even though the gig itself is paying you the flat fee, you're not then, once that flat fee is done, the content that you're outputting from that and putting on TikTok
isn't making me,
isn't then really then
it's great portfolio. It's great to get another team to then go, oh my God, we want more of this.
Yeah.
But then it means that you have to be willing to pay a flat fee that is worth your time. And $1,000, $2,000 isn't going to cut it for a week worth of me being on site where I can't live stream. So I'm not making money from Twitch. I'm not, working on all my other projects. And so that was being the biggest insight to me is, oh shit, the revenue streams are so different. And the input and output for those revenue streams are very different from one way to the other. So YouTubers can absolutely say, oh, you don't need to pay me if I can get to go to this conference or I can get to go to this event, because this is going to allow me to create this video that then is going to be seen by 10,000, 100,000 people, which then the AdSense from that pays me and I'm good to go. That model works incredibly if you're a YouTuber. If you're a content creator on TikTok, that's not the same.
Well, yeah, and like it's getting that content then and it being good content for YouTube packaged well will then get you more subscribers, which then, similar like TikTok does, will then get you more brand deals, etc. But then you'll be able to output more videos onto YouTube.
It's the endless cycle.
Which you are doing TikTok, but actually the cycle where the content is going back into TikTok is not going to give you as much monetary value as a cycle doing it for YouTube.
That's it. My TikToks are starting to be like little moments of my Twitch streams that tells people, oh, you missed the wider conversation. You should go and subscribe and join Tony's, Twitch. Or my TikTok should be mini outputs from wider YouTube videos that then tell people go and subscribe to her. There's a thing that's missing right now in that endless cycle with TikTok, that yes, 100% is my portfolio and building out in the public. People get to, and I'm getting all of these deals, but these deals now need to be worth it, and they need to be paying what I believe is my worth and my time, which is harder when you're a content creator, not an influencer, because you're paying for the output of the content, not for the views, not because I have 10 million followers. Which becomes a whole other can of worms and a whole interesting conversation, especially as the creator economy is still very new for a lot of Europeans, and Formula One is a very European sport still to this day, even though it's growing massively in the American market. But yeah, there's endless questions. It's an endless can of worm. You start scratching at something and you go, oh shit, I thought this would be simple, but it's not. To your point about Patreon, it's not as simple as just slap it behind a paywall on Patreon. You have to convince people to spend $5 a month.
But yeah, it's challenging. But I feel like you're like me, where I'm an overthinker as well. But I get excited by overthinking all of this stuff. I get weird like pleasure and joy from spending 2 hours overthinking something. So to the point where like I'm super happy with, now I've come to this conclusion. It might have taken me 2 hours of going down 100 different routes of doing it, but now I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I just did that.
Do you have any anxiety for then doing the thing? Or are you just like, I've spent the necessary time, whether that's 2 hours, 10 days, whatever it is, and then you're just like, now I'm ready to put it out in the world? Because my issue is I do that and then I'm anxious about putting it out in the world, and I do not know why. And there's no valid reason why I should be anxious about. Just get it done. Like, create the Patreon. So you know what to do.
Yeah.
Go and set it up.
I'm like that. I'm definitely more of a thinker and a strategic planner than a let's just jump in head first and do. I have to force myself to just like to do. Like I work with some people in past and present that they don't really think about stuff, but they just go head first. And I'm like, ooh, but they get shit done. And I'm like, they didn't get it done perfect. They didn't get it done perfect, but they get shit done. I'm like, I wish I could just do that sometimes. I wish I could just not spend 5 hours thinking about it and then create this perfect plan and then end up not doing it. Where they've just planned for half an hour and they've jumped in and they've got so much more value out of it because they've actually done it.
They've just gone and done it. This is why, by the way, Ben, why anything live is incredibly hard for me, because I get very anxious, but I just get it done. You just go on stage. And every time I do it, every time I've given a big, massive presentation, or every single time without fail that I go live on Twitch, I go, what the fuck am I doing? This is insanity. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I love it. And I spend 3 hours, but because there's no overthinking it, you're live. You're live. It's whatever you thought was a bad thing to say. It's already out there. It's already said. And you can backtrack and you can go, hold on a minute, actually, because I can't overthink when I'm live. That part of my brain is just is going. And I think I do love editing and creating videos, but it's why podcasts work really well. It's why live streaming works really well for me. It's why I'm a great public speaker, because I just get up there and I've done the necessary prep and I just get up there and do the thing. But then I'm really bad at repurposing the content. But it's, again, I'd never thought about content in that way. The content that you prep and prepare and put out and it's a final product, and the content that you just go live and it's a moment in time and it happened or it didn't, and you were there for it or you weren't, which is I think why I have a hard time with the VODs from Twitch, where I'm just like, you're either there and you did it. What, this video has no meaning. Like that moment has passed. Those ideas were fleeting. Those ideas were true an hour ago. Maybe they're not true today. But I think that's just the way I think. It's just fascinating. I think this is why I'm very interested. It's why I'm very excited by the content space right now, because exactly what you just described. There's so many things to think about. So many moving pieces.
Things to think about. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I enjoy my evenings. Like, doing. My parents are like, "Why don't you go out? Like, why don't you socialize?" And like, and I do that a bit, but I'm like, do you know where? Like, my happy place is me just sat in front of my desk, just thinking about all of these possibilities of me doing stuff. I'm like, that's what I enjoy doing. Like, and that's fine. Like, if that's what I enjoy doing, so if someone wants to watch Netflix on TV, that's what they're enjoying. That's fine. If someone wants to sit here and try and solve complex problems in their head unnecessarily, and it might not achieve anything, then that's great, because that's what I enjoy. That's what I enjoy doing.
One last thought that I had that's interesting hearing you say that was the archaic way, in just pure my personal opinion here, but the archaic way of thinking about what content creators are doing in the content creator economy is treating this as a stepping stone. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Like I've just said, like the content that I put on TikTok for the last year has allowed me to get these deals and get these collaborations. I see a lot of people who are putting content out there to get hired by, get a gig, whether it's become TV presenter or get hired by this company. Again, not a bad thing. But what the archaic mindset is thinking that YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, everyone that's creating on these spaces because they want to be hired by a traditional media agency, or they want to be hired by the CNNs of the world, or they want to be hired by a Netflix, or they want to show on a proper traditional channel. And I'm stuck with Marques Brownlee, who's obviously been a YouTuber for many, many years. And I love him because he's unapologetic about, I'm a YouTuber, nothing more, nothing less. That's what I do. Mm. And he has spoken very openly and very candidly, actually Hassan as well, of just like, I'm not doing this to be hired by someone else to do this on another traditional entity. YouTube is it. For Hassan, it's Twitch. He's like, this is the end destination for me. And then they were talking, I can't remember what podcast he was on or what show he was on, but someone was, they were talking about Emma Chamberlain, who, for those of you who don't know, she's also been doing these daily vlogs or weekly vlogs for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. And she now has her own coffee brand. And she was invited recently by the Met Gala, I think, or by Vogue, to interview people at the Met Gala. And so people are saying, well, she's no longer a YouTuber. She's become so much more. And that YouTuber is like a stepping stone for her to be hired, by Vogue and the Met Gala to do all of these interviews, very serious stuff, by very traditional, very well-respected agencies. But then, and so I think it was Marques that was explaining how for some people it definitely is a stepping stone, or whether they designed it that way or not. And then the co-host on the podcast came back and said something so good. He's like, but where are we watching those videos of Emma Chamberlain at the Met Gala being interviewed by Vogue? You're watching it on YouTube. And so there was something so incredible there of, even when you think that YouTube or the videos, that your content that you're creating on this channel is a stepping stone for something bigger, where are you actually consuming that content at the end of the day? You're consuming it on Twitch, or you're consuming it on YouTube, or you're consuming it on TikTok, which again goes back to the trend of, what is it, like 60 or 70% of Gen Z are getting all of their news from TikTok right now, which is absolutely insane. Yeah. So I like that. I think we're in a moment in time where it is an archaic and maybe a wrong mindset to think that all of these social platforms are a stepping stone to the traditional thing. Whereas I think this is becoming the thing. Twitch is becoming the go-to platform for political commentary, for sports commentary, and I think there's a future in that that's going to be really exciting. YouTube is becoming the place where we consume content. We're not turning on the TV and consuming content there like we used to. We're going on YouTube. And I don't know why, but that stuck with me. And I think going back to your thought, like, this is my happy place, this is what I get excited about. That's what I get excited about as well. Of just like, holy shit, this, our parents can look at this and go, oh, maybe, and I still get it when I tell my dad that, I got a deal with Aston Martin, or I'm doing something with the ESPN. He's like, oh, wow, those are names that he recognizes. And no, he doesn't know what Twitch is. He barely knows what TikTok is. But I'm excited for when parents get excited for their kids. You go, wow, you've got a whole show on Twitch. That's really fucking cool. And maybe that will never get there. But I think it's a fun way of thinking about that traditional, archaic industries, platforms and companies, and that switch to this new way of consuming and creating content.
Nice. That's a great answer.
That's where my brain is at.
Before we wrap up, then,
that's how we should. And look, and those are all thoughts that I get from consuming content.
Yeah.
Those are all thoughts that I get from listening to Marquez Brownie on the podcast for an hour, or listening to Hassan stream, or looking at Emma Chamberlain and how she's editing it. Like, this is all of the things that swirl in my head. I pick up from all of those moments that I used to think I'm wasting my time passively consuming content. No, these are all like nuggets of information that help me help me understand the way I think about the world. And they're things I don't forget. And whether it's something I consumed a week ago or 5 years ago, they stick with me.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. Like, I am someone that is just like loves, like you said at the start of the podcast, you like learning. Like, literally, I always say to people, like, people say, what's your favorite hobby? I say learning.
I love that.
Literally, like, that is what I do all the time. YouTube is my favorite thing ever. If I said what one thing can you live with, I'd be YouTube 100%.
It's funny.
I'm learning about editing, thumbnails, personal development, anything that I just think is going to make my life better or make me happier, essentially, like, is what I like learning about.
The question for you is has that always been the case, or has that changed for you recently? For me, YouTube has been a thing that's maybe been new of like 5-6 years ago. I don't think I was consuming that much YouTube more than 5 years ago.
It was around the age of when I was around 22, 23. So I'm 28, so about 5 or 6 years ago. That was the age when I started to get into personal development and like growth mindset kind of shit, like character stuff. Like, that was, and then I was searching for where to consume content, people that were doing that, and so YouTube. That was when I really started to like figure out, oh shit, actually YouTube is not just funny entertainment videos that I was probably watching as I was younger, because we didn't really have TikTok and Instagram Reels didn't exist, so YouTube was the place where I consumed entertainment content. And then I then started searching for more educational stuff, and I was like, oh shit, there's actually lots of educational stuff on YouTube. I was like, it's not just this like social media platform where like novice educators are creating stuff. These people know their shit and they're creating really good videos. I was like, wow, I could learn. And then I realized this is like, fuck university, fuck everything else. Like, I could just sit.
This is where you're learning.
I don't need to pay for it. Because I was just looking at courses. This was a big time. I was like, oh yeah, with courses were kind of growing as well. Like, oh, everyone's got a course. And I was like, you know, why the fuck would I pay for a course? I can go on YouTube and find you 100 super high quality creators in any niche and learn a shit ton from them. And I was like, wow, like I've just, since then I just spend all.
And same with TikTok.
Learn something. On YouTube.
By the way, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, no one was creating educational content, and here I was trying to convince people that this was the place 2 years ago, and they were just like, "I'm here for the dancing girls. What are you talking about?" Like, I could see people just like angrily, like, "What are you doing on my For You?" And I got these messages, "What are you doing on my For You page? I don't want to listen to women talk. I want to listen to them." And I was like, "Oh my god, okay." And it's interesting now how TikTok has become the place where people learn and they educate themselves, and then they go for longer form formats on YouTube, which is exciting. Do you have any hobbies that you're able to just have as a hobby, or is every hobby you have tied to personal development or learning? Or that's something I struggle with, of just doing something just because I like it. Don't need to take notes, don't need to get better at it, just do it because you like it. And I don't think I'm capable of doing that. Even movies, when I watch them, my brain's like, oh, this is interesting. There's content out of this. Like, are you able to just do shit?
I don't like watching movies, to be honest. Most of them bore me because they're just not complex enough. I get too distracted thinking about content. I'm getting distracted. I can't sit there and watch a film without being somewhere else, basically. The only thing that I can do where I'm not thinking about anything else is either... So gaming. Gaming is probably my hobby, where I like gaming because... because I genuinely like gaming. But as I've got older, I've realised it's one of the few things that I can do where I switch off from everything. As in where I'm not thinking about content. When I'm playing like Warzone or an FPS, I'm not thinking about what TikTok I'm creating tomorrow. If I'm watching a film, I am. The only other thing that I also have found recently that switches me off is editing. I have actually really enjoyed editing. Yeah. It's therapeutic for me.
It is.
I sometimes don't want to start editing because I'm aware that it's not the funnest thing to do in the world. But then as soon as I start, 4 hours later, I'm like, oh shit. Like I've not even thought about anything in my head related to anything in my life. But I've just been fucking there cutting up clips, which is, when you think about it, it's boring as fuck. But at the same time, it's soothing for my mind.
That's it. For people who have brains, I think like ours, that are constantly swirling and going and looking at things, and think when you get overwhelmed, this is it. It just cuts off the noise for you. It's like turning the volume down for me. It's just like, there's nothing left. And I'm just in this like void of silence where I'm just like, oh, this is good. I needed to switch my brain off.
I think that's why, one of the reasons actually that I don't enjoy films that much, because I can't get the full enjoyment of a film because I'm too busy thinking about other stuff. I can't fully indulge in it. Like some films are great, but if I could sit there and imagine if I could sit and watch a film for 2 hours and have no thoughts related to anything but the film, I would probably enjoy it. But the problem is that that's just impossible.
It doesn't give you that.
For me. It doesn't give me that, and so it's not something that I choose to do, because I was like, well, actually, I might as well just sit at my desk and think about TikToks, because I'm not achieving any enjoyment from watching a film whilst also thinking about TikToks. Yeah. I feel like I'm wasting my time, because I could actually be putting more thought into the TikToks sat here for 2 hours,
and I'm the same,
and I'll get more enjoyment out of it because I've got more done.
And it's so interesting because that's how I taught. By the way, that's how I taught myself how to do habits. Is I decided, it was 6 years ago, and I did it for a whole year. That every month I would teach myself a new skill, and I'd give myself 30 days. So created those parameters. I only have a month. Teach myself a new skill, and purely for enjoyment. Because everything I was doing, I was picking up to be competitive or turn it into a job. And I was like, this is one thing where I'm going to teach myself how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Give myself a month. And it was interesting because I didn't say the goal is to teach myself how to solve a Rubik's Cube in under 2 minutes. It was just like, in 30 days, can I solve just one Rubik's Cube? And then you realize, the first one took me 5 days. And then you're like, actually, I can do that again. I can get this faster and faster. And that created the habit for me of every day I'm doing 5, 10, 15 minutes to an hour of Rubik's Cube solving. And then every month I would give myself a new task. And I loved it because it's what I needed to switch my brain off. And I gave myself, and it taught me habits, building habits. It was so helpful.
How long have you been doing that for?
I did it for about a year when I was deep into sales, and sales is the highs are high, but the lows are really fucking low. Yeah. And when your whole worth is tied to, did you sign that contract? Did you get that money on the table? I needed something that would create that enjoyment. So I did it for about 18 months. And then I switched to a model where I give myself 2 to 3 months, not just 1 month. But I did it for about a year and a half, and loved it. And sometimes I still pick up a thing. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to give myself 2 months to teach myself how to do X. And I fucking love it. It helps me.
Yeah, that's nice. Sometimes I do think that I should make more effort to try and find things that can achieve that.
Yeah.
Therapeutics, like the fully indulge kind of activities where I can for me, for the gaming and editing, there has to be other stuff out there that I can achieve that same thing.
Yeah.
So why don't I go and try and find them? Like,
so I was never going to become a world champion of, fast Rubik's Cube solving. These kids of 12 are solving it in 5 seconds. I was like, I know that there's no way that I can be competitive with myself, but I'm not about to turn this into my next job. And so I chose things. I even taught myself how to make the best spare ribs for 2 months, and I just tried every sauce in the planet and every combo of cooking. I was like, I have no desire to become a chef. Oh, and if I did all of a sudden go, oh my God, I love, great. But my thing is, I'm so competitive that if I do something, and I used to do a lot of flying trapeze and ballet dancing, and I took it seriously. I'd do 15 hours of ballet a week, and had no social life. And all of a sudden it was like, I have a desire to become a ballerina. And my dad was like, I thought you were just doing this for shits and giggles. And all of a sudden this has become your whole life passion. And that was me as a kid all the time. Everything became, and then I was like, I'm going to join the circus and become a flying trapeze artist. And my dad was like, okay, I guess. So I've found things like Rubik's Cube solving where I'm just like, I'm never going to become exceptional at this, but I'll teach myself a new skill. Maybe that's your thing. Rubik's Cubes. Give yourself that.
Maybe my flatmate's gone.
There you go. Pick it up. How do we wrap this out?
Yeah, because we were supposed to wrap it up 15 minutes ago, and then it's gone. Right, I'm going to wrap it up with one question, which is what are you most excited about at the moment in terms of potential, a new venture, a new project? What is it that's you've got the stuff you've got your podcast, you've got everything that you're settled into, and you've got your habits for. What is it that's actually bringing you excitement into your life, thinking about where something could go?
I think there's a bunch, but I will, in the spirit of being succinct, I would say streaming, because I've only been doing it for 4 months. And I see the writing on the wall, and I see the potential. And by the way, just yesterday, the Spanish head coach of football has decided, I don't know if you saw this, but has decided that he is ahead of, obviously, FIFA 2022, which is happening this week or next week. He is not going to be he doesn't like sports media and sports journalists, and he's not going to be giving the media anything. He's just going to go live on Twitch throughout the whole of FIFA 2022, and he set up a Twitch account. And so this Spanish head coach is just going to go direct, and he said, I'm going to avoid going through the media so that they don't make up stories. I'm going to create a dialogue with the fans, and I'm going to go straight to the fans. And I look at this and go, fuck yes, this is the future.
Wait, they're doing something with La Liga as well. Twitch.
Really?
Yeah. It might be linked to that as well.
It might be linked. This guy's called Luis Enrique.
Maybe that has influenced it. They're basically taking creators to games and getting Twitch streamers to be the pundits and stuff and that's what exactly what he said. Live streaming on Twitch. So maybe and
he said, I have no idea how this experiment's going to work out, but he said he's already got, I think, 50,000 followers in a day. He's a big head coach, he is a well-respected head coach, and he's giving the middle finger to traditional media and going, I'm bypassing the institutions. You can't censor me. You can't edit my content. You can't edit my words out. I'm going direct to the fans. And I look at this and go, this is it. This is the future.
When are you going to do an IRL then on the track?
I don't. So this is where I'm just like, I have done really poorly in creating content live. I'm like you, I love the comfort of my home and sitting behind my computer. And then when you put me out in the world, I get very quickly overwhelmed, and I'll sit in a corner and do all these things, or I'll just turn on and do the thing I need to do and present. But I'd love to try an IRL at some point. I think it'd be really interesting. But for me, that's it. The future of sports commentary or political commentary, reaching out to new audiences, creating that dialogue, creating that two-way street, that for me is really, really exciting. And what's more exciting is that the business people, the decision makers, are not there yet, which is why, going right back to our 2-hour conversation from 2 hours ago, LinkedIn becomes interesting, because I think you need to ping the right people on LinkedIn, or create posts or create some commentary on LinkedIn that gets people excited about, wait, what are you creating all the way over there on Twitch, and why should I be paying attention to that? And so I think that's what I'm most excited about, is being a little bit ahead of the curve in the future of sports commentary and political commentary, and seeing people like Luis Enrique go middle fingers up to traditional media, bypassing all of you, and I'm going direct to the fans. And boy, does that man have fans. So it's going to be really interesting. to see what he comes out with, and I'm excited to see the space grow. But yeah, that's where my head is at. That's what I'm excited. There's a bunch of other projects that's super, super exciting, but I think this is one that's I'm nerding out on that right now.
Nice. I'm looking forward to seeing like your Twitch journey.
There's so many people to learn from. Yeah.
Let's see.
Whether it's yourself, Blake. Yeah, there's so many people
I think having Blake
learn.
there is really good for you, because he's done, I guess, what you're probably not in the same style, but he's done it within F1.
And that's the thing. The formats can be the same. There's no one doing what he's doing. The format is the same, using the same tools, but approaching it in your own way, which is hard, because you go, does anyone even want this? And, you know, and every time he's raided my channel at the end of his podcast a few times. And the 2 times he raided them in the last month, I've been deep down into Brazilian politics. And he's like, what the fuck, Tony? Not that he said this, but I'm like, what's happening? Why are you commenting on Brazilian politics? I'm like, well, Formula One, the next race is in Brazil, and there's elections happening right now, but it must be very weird where he's like, I've raided you twice and you've been in politics. Can you go back into Formula One? So the raid actually makes sense. But I've been learning from my...
There'll be some of his audience that 100% will want to be hearing you talk about
100%
Brazilian politics ahead of the
Formula One game. It's true. And I got those exact comments, Ben, exactly to your point. And if I can convince even just 10% of that audience to be like, fuck yeah, I've heard of no one else talk about the intersection of politics and Formula One. I'm here for that. Because to your point, they're just like Blake and I, like, are 2 sides of the same coin, where he goes really deep on analytics and I go very broad on, it's not just Formula One, it's tech, it's politics, it's pop culture. And so we fit in really nicely in our deep perspective. That's it. Perfect dynamic.
Niche. Super niche, but actually the dynamics like really complement each other, because like the type of person that's into
one
could be into the other, because it's like it's not just turning on the F1 on a Sunday and watching it. It's like, I want to know everything else that's going behind the scenes here.
That's it.
I think what Blake has found is there's actually a fucking ton of people that are really interested in that, and we spoke about it. The broadcasters are not delivering the content that people want, or I think it's content that people don't even know that that know that exists, because it doesn't exist. And so Blake's like, giving it to them, and then they're like, oh my god, like, why doesn't anyone talk about this?
One's perfect for that.
So new.
Because they've been delivering for the same people in the same way for the last 70 years. And all of a sudden people like Blake and myself are coming going, I don't want to listen to this. I have deep respect for the people who do this, but that's not how I want to watch my race on Sunday. So there's a different way of doing it. Let's do it. That again, it goes back to like, that's what I'm deeply excited by and passionate about right now. Who knows? My answer could change in 2 months. Well, Thanks for having me, Ben.
Well, yeah, it's been a pleasure. That was
long. Good luck editing this one. Sorry.
Don't mind me. I could easily talk for another few hours, to be honest.
I know that feeling.
That was everything that I love talking about, because I find it. There's not loads of people that really like going deep on stuff, but like I really enjoy just overthinking and going super technical about just like content and life and time and stuff, because I just think the more you think about it, I think the better the outcomes are for yourself, especially when you're like you're trying to grow your personal brand and you're working for yourself, and you're not in a corporate firm. You're not just turning up every day where someone's telling you what to do. I'm going to stop rambling, because we're going to go into another conversation here. Like,
we are. Stop. Pull the plug.
Right. Before we go, have you got your schedule, Twitch schedule? Like,
I do actually.
Like, you do. What?
So normally my Twitch schedule is Mondays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. PT time, Pacific time, and I go for 3 or 4 hours. This week is a bit up in the air because of the dog, but I'm going live tomorrow. But yeah, generally right now it's Mondays and Thursdays, and I'm going to start probably doing more content actually during the races. But I'm still finding my footing there. And I'd love for it to be 2 to 3 times a week, but right now it's 2 times a week.
Great, nice. Well, I'll drop all of like your links down below, and to your podcast as well. I'm sure people will probably be interested in that. But yeah, other than that, thanks you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Bye, Toni.
See you. Thanks for having me.
See you later.